I think I was just afraid of facing the emotions again, the feeling of desperation and helplessness in some situations. And, you know, we had already officially lost the war. I didn't necessarily want to go back and see what that loss looked like. I wanted to find some reconciliation. I wasn't sure I was going to, so I just didn't want to deal with the results of going back and reliving those emotions and coming back feeling the same way we did the first time or even worse. Hello, I'm Mike. I was an Army medic in Vietnam. I was also trained to be a surgical technician in addition to being a medic.
I'm Shirley, and I was in the Army Nurse Corps, and I was a nurse when I went to Vietnam.
We were both stationed at the 91st Evacuation Hospital in Chulai, but our initial meeting took place on the back of a small Army pickup truck going to an orphanage outside the compound to teach young orphans English.
It had been 45 years since we left the war behind us, and after a lot of thought and consideration, we decided that we would go back to Vietnam and revisit some places that would bring healing and also maybe some peace in areas that we had visited before. So when we got to Vietnam, we set out to find these locations, the orphanage and the 91st Evac where we had served. And we found out that our guides did not know where these places were. So we had brought along some photos, and between our photos and our memories, we set out to find these locations.
You know, we got into their van and, you know, we had a driver and we had our guide and we drove from Da Nang. Took a couple hours to get down there. So we're driving around this area, and our guide and our driver stopped and were conversing with locals who were older, which we thought would be good, because if they were older, maybe they had memories of the period of time when we were there. They came back and said they may know the location where the orphanage was, and it wasn't far from where that conversation took place that they drove us to this fenced-in compound and the building that we recognize.
Mm-hmm. Still the same. Yeah.
Going to the orphanage was a weekly event on our one day off, and then we would spend the first half of the day with the kids, as you can see in the photos, playing with them.
Brought back all those emotions as you stand there in front of this many years past, and you're standing there. It's like deja vu. It's like you were right back in time.
It was almost a flooding feeling.
No, we started pulling up in the truck, and I just started to weep. I don't know why. I was emotional, just being back here after this many years, standing on these exact grounds.
It's just kind of a rebirth of our relationship and a confirmation of our relationship. What a crazy place and what crazy circumstances to meet under, but I will always believe it was divine intervention that brought us halfway across the world. And there's the truck that we would come in every week. It was an open truck, an open bed truck, and we would sit in the open bed. And when we first met, she was on one side and I was on the other. And I looked over, I said, "Man, she's beautiful."
we just started talking. As I recall, we did have that exchange several times of eyes meeting, looking away, eyes meeting, and what I remember is he was just so good looking.
Didn't we hit a bump or something and you came into me?
Something like that.
Something like that. I think that was it. I think we hit a big bump or something and you fell into me.
Yeah, something like that.
Or did you do that on purpose? Mm-hmm. In the hospital compound, there was even less possibility that we would find the hospital compound because as we described what we remembered, I guess the best thing was the fact that it was on the coast. But we were told that that area had been converted to a communist military base and it was totally off limits. Our guides met this guy on a motorcycle. Everything over there was more scooter than it was motorcycle. And I remember him, you know, a little bit older guy, and he was smoking a cigarette nonstop, and he, in conversation that we didn't understand, seemed to think he knew where the hospital compound was. And so we followed them for a ways and got to a beach where there was, I guess it was a small restaurant or local restaurant, and we met some people there. So everybody was kind of getting into this project of trying to help us find this place. And so we got down to this beach that looked familiar,
a little bit,
but it wasn't right.
We knew it wasn't.
It wasn't right, but it felt like a familiar area to us. And we started having conversations, and we had brought some photographs along, and I'm scanning the horizon, and
you pulled that picture.
And I had a picture with me that was the ocean with islands that, you know, they jetted out of the ocean, and I looked over and I said, boy, that looks familiar. Then I showed it to the older gentleman, and then
he looked at the photograph.
He looked at the photograph, and he turned and he went like that, and at the same time he did that, I held it up, and it was an overlay. The photograph was an exact overlay of that scene. I mean, it fit. It was like a puzzle piece the last puzzle piece that you put in the puzzle. It's done. It was there. I go, we're here. So our motorcycle man, you know, lit up another cigarette and cranked up the scooter, and our van followed him, and he pulled up to this large field, overgrown, and he says, "Here." I looked around and he says, "I don't think this was it," because there was nothing there.
This is it. I never dreamed we'd get back there. I mean,
We piled out of the van. My son and I just started, you know, breaking bushes. You know, it was just, you know, it's going through the bushes, but nothing recognizable until we got to the cliff.
Wow. I'm down this way, right?
And there was no doubt when we got to this cliff and this rock formation that led down to this little beach that we could go to, we knew we were there. And then we backing up, we found remnants of what we believed to be the bunkers where we would spend hours when they were, you know, sending rockets from the mountains into the compound. And we found that, and there was no doubt that was the location. And that was, you know, a moment that was amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think up until that point I felt like a tourist going to Vietnam. And at that moment I felt like we had come back to a place that had a lot of meaning and significance in our lives and our relationship. It was like we were back where we were, where it all started. Our purpose was to, given the tools and the talents and the teams of people there, we were to, you know, put these guys back together the best way we could, send them home so they could lead a life as close to normal as possible. The level of sacrifice made by, you know, guys that were plucked out of everyday lives in our country and wherever they're in school or whether they're working or whether they're part of a family, where they had their own family, plucked out and then placed in this chaotic country, and then they only came to us when they were wounded. And I just remember feeling, you know, we did good and we did the best we could with what we had under the circumstances, but when you lost a guy, you know, I just regret that, you know, we weren't able to do more and send more guys home. And it wasn't our fault, but you were their last chance, you know. When these guys got injured, it was a ticket home. And the more severe you're injured, the more certainty that you would be going home. And like I said, that became the common goal of everybody, was survive and get home. And when they come to us, depending upon their condition, that's what they would talk about, and that's what we talk about to them. Is you're going home. You survived this. You got out of this. You're going home. And I felt like telling them that. I don't know how many of them believed me, but I just felt I had an obligation to, in a very hopeless war, a hopeless situation, that I wanted them
On to that hope.
to experience the hope that they would go home, because that's all anybody wanted to do, is go home. Sharing this very traumatic, almost surreal experience, when you have somebody that you immediately connect to and immediately find the ability to communicate with, who on so many levels was like you, and how you're processing all this information and everything, that did create a bond very rapidly and very genuinely, that I think sealed our relationship even before we fully realized it. You know, we were both stuck here together, and we gave each other the freedom to express ourselves, our frustrations, our fears.
A lot of the people that were over there were floundering, were just floundering, trying to make sense of what they were doing and put it back to what real life was back in the real world, where we had a little piece of real world. We did have a little piece, really, together, just sharing our dreams together.
And in that exchange, I just remember feeling so, satisfied that, she understands, and she's thinking the same way I am and feeling the same way I am, and expressing those feelings and thoughts, that it just connected us in a very unique way that's difficult to describe, but we both knew it. To think where that started and how that started is just, it's hard to describe.
And it was so unexpected. I mean, it wasn't anything you were thinking about at all going over there, meeting someone that was going to be your life partner. It was just it just kind of came together, and it was unexpected from both of our standpoints. It just started blossoming, and yeah. You're
here to, face the past and try to process the past and try to make some sense of the past. And I wanted to face what seems like we always keep buried deep inside of us, because it's always there. From that Wednesday when we found where we had met, and I was able to now face those deep-seated feelings and emotions and at least deal with them a little bit. That kind of left a lingering feeling, okay, you've found some level of closure that you would not have otherwise experienced had you not gone back. It kind of made it worth it. We saw some beautiful things, we ate some really good food, and we had some good interactions with the people. We really did. I mean, they were kind, they were warm-hearted.
Here you see these people, they're just great. They've survived. They're living their lives. This is their area, and we were a part of that. But just meeting all those great people was very healing.
I think it's an overall just greater appreciation for my bride, my family, our history together, our accomplishments, if any, in life, I think lie in the existence of our 3 children, and that they too are loving following God and their families, and I just have a greater appreciation for all that we've been blessed with as I've had the opportunity to look back at our beginnings.